That's all about efficiencies. How efficiently can you collect the mortgage payments, pay the person's taxes and insurance, report to their credit, and then pass the money on to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or Ginnie Mae for their piece of the asset. But that's all about efficiency, and we just got really, really good at that through technology, through just, I guess, fiscal responsibility or financial responsibility. I mean, you could be amazed how wasteful companies can be when they just don't care. I mean, if I was going to get ahead in life, the only way I was going to get ahead was by outworking and being more efficient than anybody else, and having this belief that I could do it. You know, okay, if that person can figure it out, I think I'm smart enough, I'm going to figure it out too.
Welcome back to the Reside Platform Podcast. We are on a mission to absolutely deliver the best content, team building, team scaling, company building information we can to our audience. And today is really exciting because we have a special guest that Preston Guyton hit me up the other day. He's just like, hey man, have you heard of this guy? I go, yeah, I've heard of him. He's like, well, I know him and he's incredible and someone you need to meet. So within seconds, we set up the podcast. So Preston, do the honors and introduce our amazing guest. You guys are going to absolutely love this. Tons of content.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I think I met Robert probably 2 months ago now, something like that. But Rob Palmer with LPT Realty, Listing Power Tools, RP Funding, soccer team, all the great things. So yeah, glad you committed to joining and excited to discuss everything with you today.
Yeah, it works out, man. I made a hole in my calendar to talk to you about easy home search today for that extended window, and the podcast fit right into it. So excited to be here with you guys.
We got Robert Palmer here, right? This is a Robert Palmer Company's entrepreneur. Like when it talks about like doing a lot of things really well, this is the guy. And in fact, Preston's like, hey, look this guy up. And I looked him up and I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, wait a second here, you know? So Robert, for the people that don't know who you are, don't know your backstory, what's the origin story and who are you and what's going on and what kind of impact are you having on the real estate industry?
Yeah, man, it's a serial entrepreneur. I collect companies. You know, if you look at that big list on Robert Palmer Companies, it's so long because I don't sell anything. I like to build stuff. I like to stay involved. I got started in the mortgage business really young. I went off to college. I had a state scholarship to UCF and made it through about half of my first semester. My mom got really sick. She was a brittle diabetic, and she ended up in a coma from her diabetes. So I dropped out of college, went home to take care of her, and she was a one-man mortgage broker. So she had this little mortgage brokerage company. I had worked with her during summers, and so I knew that with her being in a coma in the hospital, no one was working on the files for those couple of people who were trying to buy homes. And so I went to her office, and I got the files, and I called the wholesale lender. I'll never forget a guy named Jerry and an underwriter named Laura, and they really liked my mom, and they were like, hey, bring the files to Orlando, and we're going to help you figure this out. And so I managed to get those couple of files closed, help those homeowners get into their dream home. Mom came out of the coma, which was great, and then the doctors told her that basically the stress of the mortgage business is what was making her really sick, and that she needed to change her life path or she wasn't going to be around much longer, and I wanted to see my mom stick around. So she studied for her personal trainer license and became a certified personal trainer, which let her focus completely on her health. And I studied for my mortgage broker's license, and I became a mortgage broker because I tried to go back to college and I had missed a couple finals, and they didn't care why. Like once my GPA fell, that state scholarship was gone and I couldn't afford to go back to college. So I became a mortgage broker, and that's what got me into this crazy real estate business. From there, I had a knack for it. I took what was me as a little one-man mortgage broker and turned it into a pretty big company over the next couple of years. And then when I was 22, I sold it to a bigger lender in Orlando. They really just merged us in. It's the only time I've ever sold a company in my life. I merged my company into these guys over in Orlando, and then they put me in charge of a big division for them. I worked for them until they went out of business in 2007 with the subprime crash. And that's when I started the RP Funding. I scraped together every penny I had to just have the exact amount of net worth required to be a lender and be able to underwrite loans and close loans in our own name. And then shortly thereafter, the whole world changed. They raised the net worth requirements. You know, the CFPB and Dodd-Frank came out and changed the way originators could be compensated. Like, it was a very interesting time in the mortgage business, a lot of parallels to what we're facing right now in the real estate business. And just, from there, just, put my head down, a lot of hard work, a lot of direct mail. My now wife and I, girlfriend at the time, we would actually stuff envelopes for direct mail at night. So we would run the mortgage company during the day. She was an underwriter. I would originate the loans. And then at night, we would run these copy machines to run direct mail. We would stuff the envelopes, get up at 7 a.m. the next morning, drop all the mailers off at the post office to make the phone ring, and then originate and close the loans. And like that was our cycle for the first 2 or 3 years of the company to just get things off the ground. And what was a pretty rough time in the industry.
That's RP lending. And, when we're talking about stuffing envelopes and sending letters, tell me about the scale. You don't strike me as somebody that was sending out 10 letters a night.
Yeah, no, man, this was I think probably her and I alone were probably doing 100,000 pieces of direct mail a month. So there was a direct mail company that we were talking to, and they went out of business. And so they had this machine called a glue folder, and it would take paper and fold it in to look like the way you get your W-2s where you tear the sides off. And so we had that. And so we would play Halo on the projector in our little conference room while the copy machine ran. And then once it got to like 3,000 or 4,000 pieces of paper sitting on it, we'd go out there and she'd run the envelope stuffer and I'd run the glue folder. And we would, like I said, probably about 100,000 pieces of direct mail a month from the two of us doing mail all hours of the night in order to make the phone ring. Because it takes a lot of mail to get results and a lot of consistency with mail to get results. And then and they got to know us at the post office. To get that absolute lowest postage pricing, we had to sort it, put it in the right order, get it in the bins, load it in the back of my sport utility vehicle, drive it down to the post office. I would back up next to where the semis were, bringing in legit mail. And I'd back my little sport ute in there and unload my 20, 30 trays of mail or whatever each morning, and then go originate loans. We did what we had to do, man. It was undercapitalized, terrible time in the market, and it was just do what we had to do to survive and win and grow, and that's what we did.
The one thing with, you read about RP funding and it was important to you, and, read about your dad and your mom and the struggle they had financially. A lot of it, you didn't have jump fees or mortgage fees, and doing something different that wasn't everybody else probably at the time was you can't run a mortgage company, you can't be successful if you don't have those fees.
Yeah.
I know that was something that, something you stood behind and built your business behind. So can you talk about that more?
Yeah, I think what we figured out through doing that is that we could be really efficient, because we weren't at the time, the big banks were really falling apart. They had all these legacy issues created by the subprime loans, tons of extra overhead because they were coming out of this boom market. And then all of a sudden the number of mortgages getting done was down 40% because the subprime stuff was gone. The no doc stuff was gone. The investment homes were gone. And then the number of home sales was dropping too through 2007, 8, 9. And so everybody else had this hangover of overhead, and we didn't. We were lean, we were bootstrapped, we were small. I had a handful of other staff that I'd brought over with me from the other company that had bought me. Once they went out of business, my non-compete was voided. I literally had kept all the cubicles and computers in a storage unit back in my hometown, and I loaded up a U-Haul and grabbed a buddy, and we went and got them all and built the cubicles and stuff. We were just so bootstrapped that we had this huge efficiency. But I did. I had about $1.5 million in capital. I had saved up $1.6 million. It wasn't like we were broke. I was personally broke because I couldn't touch any of that money once I put it in the company, the way the audited financials worked. But we were lean and bootstrapped and just hungry. And so, one of the first consumer offers we went out with was no lender fees. So where other companies would charge an underwriting fee, a processing fee, a credit report fee, a tax service fee, all this stuff, I said, we're just going to waive all that and make it up in efficiency. We're going to run a more efficient company where we spend less, on overhead in order to give the consumer this better deal. And then as we got bigger and bigger and more efficient, we turned that into no closing costs on the refis, which is really when the brand started to tip. But it started with that commitment to no lender fees, no junk fees, as they were called in the industry, to help people refinance, without that big cost. And we made it up by just being more efficient. When I'm the owner and sole shareholder and I'm originating the loans, and my girlfriend, now wife, is the underwriter, and this couple other people who followed me over are the head of closing and whatever. There were 6 or 8 of us in a little office doing really big things. And of course we could outperform, Washington Mutual or Chase or whoever the other big originators were at the time, with just layer upon layer upon layer of cost and expense. And so we out efficiencyed them. And I've never lost that in all my businesses. Like LPT is more efficient than any other brokerage from a cost standpoint. RP Funding, we get these audits done annually by our warehouse providers, and we are the most efficiently run machine they've ever seen in the industry. And we compete against big players, So then later in my life, when I got into mortgage servicing, which is really the bulk of RP Funding's, kind of income at this point, is we're a big mortgage servicer. And that's all about efficiencies. How efficiently can you collect the mortgage payments, pay the person's taxes and insurance, report to their credit, and then pass the money on to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or Ginnie Mae for their piece of the asset. But that's all about efficiency. And we just got really, really good at that through technology, through just, I guess, fiscal responsibility or financial responsibility. I mean, you could be amazed how wasteful companies can be when they just don't care. And because it's always been my money, I've always been the sole shareholder. Now with LPT, different vision. The agents earn stock in the company. The goal is to have an IPO in the future. But I'll never lose that financial responsibility that has been in me now for 20. I just turned 44. Like I've been at this for almost 25 years, and always been very focused on financial responsibility.
Okay, I want everyone to rewind this, because there's lots of little nuggets, nuances within what Robert just said, and I couldn't even pick them all up. But one was, because we were bootstrapping, we were efficient. Bootstrapping is efficient. Not having all this complexity and overhead is efficiency. And that's something I think a lot of leaders lost, where they're trying to remove themselves. In our real estate industry, right, Robert, as real estate sales, everyone read a book that told them, how do you remove yourself from the company and be so far removed from everything that is done that you can just go to 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss. Right. And then I listened to you, and it's like, okay, wait a second. The owner is doing all these little things, and that's why we're going to win. That's a competitive advantage. And so you kept that mindset being really lean moving forward. Where did you learn that? Did you learn that from books, systems, coaches, or just through experience?
I mean, necessity, right? Necessity is the greatest driver of invention. Look, when I first started that first little mortgage brokerage, my mom ended up filing bankruptcy when she came out of the coma. Both my parents filed bankruptcy multiple times. Just a lot of issues growing up financially. And so I didn't have a lot of money. I mean, when I started that first little mortgage brokerage, I really had nothing. And so, like, if I was going to have a computer network, I had to figure out how to run the Cat5 cables and put the router in, back in 1999. I taught myself how to write computer software because I needed a piece of software to solve a problem in the business. I couldn't afford to hire somebody to do it. So I went and bought a bunch of books from Books A Million. Back then we went to bookstores. I bought a bunch of books from Books A Million and taught myself how to code and wrote the piece of software. It just really came from, if I was going to get ahead in life, the only way I was going to get ahead was by outworking and being more efficient than anybody else. And having this belief that I could do it, hey, if that person can figure it out, I think I'm smart enough, I'm going to figure it out too. I'm at least going to try. And if I fail, then sure, we'll go hire expertise, but I'm going to try to do it myself first. And that really paid off for me along the way.
But part of outworking, I know Preston mentioned this, so I want to take not a 90-degree turn here, but I was watching a interview when you took over or acquired the Jacksonville Armada FC soccer team, right? Football team, soccer team, right? And you guys are joining the MLS, or what's this?
Yeah, so we just now, so when I bought the team, they were a part of the NASL, which was the Division II, kind of lower division soccer. It's what we call the minor leagues in soccer. And so NASL was the lower division professional, soccer league, and then USL was the Division III league, and MLS obviously was Division I. Our league ended up getting desanctioned right after I bought the team, which was this huge low point for me. I go in there, I buy the team, like I'm expecting to do great things. We get attendance up. I'm wearing the jersey on TV in my RP Funding commercials, which got a ton of excitement around the team. We took attendance from 1,800 up to like 8,000 at our final games. And then the league loses their sanctioning from U.S. Soccer, and the rug just completely gets ripped out from underneath me. And it was this great lesson in humility as an entrepreneur, because it didn't matter how much money I had, how smart I was, how hard I was willing to work. When the league lost their sanctioning and there was nowhere now for us to play, I couldn't do anything with it. And, we we sat back, we stayed committed. I never gave up. There were some dark times when it came to that, for me personally, just with the team. But I had this feeling that MLS was eventually going to get into lower division soccer. And so I really just strongly believe that as a business leader, it made sense. Like, why would MLS not get into lower division soccer? And so then about maybe 2019, 2020, about 3 years after everything fell apart, I get the call from MLS, and they're like, hey, we're doing this lower division thing, and we would love to have the Armada be one of the flagship independent clubs. We're going to move all of our lower division teams out of USL into our new league first. And then within a couple of years, we'd like to bring on some independent clubs. We want you to be one of the first. And so we just made that announcement. Big press release in Jacksonville. The mayor was there. I'm going to build a stadium. The city gave me 7 acres in downtown Jacksonville. I'm going to build it's a really cool one-of-a-kind stadium there where it's got 25,000 square feet of LPT co-working office space for our agents inside of the stadium. So the other 350 days a year when we're not playing soccer there, LPT agents will be using it and have this really nice club-level experience as an office building inside of the stadium. And really, really cool project I'm excited about. But, now joining MLS Next Pro, which is MLS's lower division league, which they've got, kind of exciting plans for in the future to grow out and really build. We're coming in on the ground floor of that. But it only worked because I never gave up, stayed committed, and kept the brand alive. I kept them alive as an amateur team through that entire window of time for us to now come back into the pros. And it's an exciting thing. I was signing some paperwork for it right before we jumped on the call here with you guys. We made those big announcements last week.
Well, there was a quote, there was something you said in the interview that struck me, and it was about marketing. You actually brought up Dan Kennedy in the interview. I've never heard anyone bring up Dan Kennedy, direct response marketing, in a professional football club, professional environment in which the new owner saying that, you guys look up Dan Kennedy. The new owner says, whoever's willing to spend the most to acquire the client will win.
Yep.
Talk to me about that thought, because you're talking about being lean, lowering overhead, but you're not saying don't spend money.
Yeah, 100%.
But what do you spend money on? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, look, I'm a huge Dan Kennedy fan. I discovered Dan Kennedy probably around 2010, 2009, like as I was getting RP funding going. It really impacted the way we redesigned a lot of that direct mail, made the direct mail more efficient. His ideas on, positioning and influence through copywriting and, direct mail, it's really left a big mark on my career, my life. And you'll see a lot of that built into what LPT is, what RP funding is. But that's the one place I'm not afraid to spend is when it comes to marketing, because that, customer acquisition, marketing, getting your name out there, there's the immediate benefits, but there's also the intangibles. Like, you wake up one day and you built a brand, like with RP funding, $150 million later in TV and radio commercials. During the entire pandemic, I was able to turn all of the advertising off and still set records for refi volume because we were the top of mind choice. Everybody in most markets in Florida thinks RP funding when they think refinancing their home loan. And so even going completely dark on TV and radio for 2 years, we still were setting origination records every single day because we had branded ourselves. And so all of that starts with ugly direct mail, and then we worked our way up to TV and radio and then sports team. I originally bought the Armada so I could put the RP funding logo on the jersey. Now I got the LPT logo on the jersey. But it's all about marketing and driving that consumer message and driving that awareness. And so what I realized is my willingness to work hard and be lean on the staffing side and the office space side. Like, we don't have fancy offices. That was never how I judged myself. I made some mistakes like that in the middle and got caught up in that and realized pretty quick it wasn't actually doing anything for my business, that the $25,000 a month office space was doing just as well for us as the $70,000 a month office space. We didn't really pick up any efficiencies or anything useful. It was just maybe an ego play. You learn some of those lessons along the way, which makes me a stronger entrepreneur today because I don't make those mistakes when it comes to LPT and kind of everything we build. But yeah, man, that marketing is one of the places I'm not afraid to spend. And so in those early days of RP funding, we literally put every dollar back into advertising. So whatever I could have made, like I was living on peanuts, living in a little apartment, driving a 10-year-old, truck, like I put everything back into the advertising budget. And then eventually I woke up and I'm like, wow, we're spending $1 million a month on direct mail, TV, and radio, and I'm not taking a dollar out of this business. And then 2013, 2014 is when I finally said, okay, like I'm going to start to take some chips off the table. I took my first $10 million, personal profit year out of the business between 13 and 14. I proposed to Jill. We got married after that. Like I kind of wanted to get to a certain level of financial success. But for me, the way to pave that way was to reinvest everything in advertising, because I knew if I let myself get comfortable, like if I had taken $1 million out in 2010 or 11, I maybe wouldn't have worked as hard. But because I kept myself broke through that entire window until I could take 10 million out, I never got lazy. I never got comfortable. And we just kept plowing it all back in, and we kept growing and building and reinvesting. And all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, wow, we've built this massive thing, all from that willingness to reinvest in the advertising and the marketing while remaining super efficient and laser focused on all the other expenses in the business.
So listing power tools, when did you launch that? What year was that?
And so I launched LPT in April of 2016. I wrote the code for it at the end of 15. And again, I was in that window now where, in my mind, once I started taking the chips off the table from the mortgage business, like I wasn't as necessary. It's not that I completely went away. I probably still put more than 4 or 5 hours a week into it, but it's definitely not my primary time suck. And at that point, we had so much scale that me as one person staying involved wasn't as critical as it was when we were much, much smaller. And I wanted to do more. And, I really loved the refi side of the business. We had just started servicing mortgages for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which is a massive shift, because now as a mortgage company, you make a piece of every payment forever. Where before you're a servicer, you get paid once and you're done, where we became a mortgage servicer. So now all these tens of thousands of loans we collect payments on, we get a piece of every one of those payments. So it's mailbox money, it's residual money. And we started that in 2014. And so really, I'd achieved all the goals inside of the mortgage company, and I wasn't done. I wanted to do something else. And I didn't really love the purchase business. It didn't really fit with how I thought about scale. It didn't really fit with how I thought about marketing and advertising. It is more of an interpersonal business. The LO goes and meets the real estate agent. They need that relationship. My marketing bazooka was not big enough to change that dynamic, and I don't think anyone's is. Rocket Mortgage and Rocket Homes is not upending the mortgage business. UWM is, by embracing mortgage brokers and embracing that local one-on-one connection. And so I really saw that happening. And so I was like, all right, well, I want to figure out something to do in the real estate space. And so the first real foray into that was listing power tools. And, being a marketing guy, being a Dan Kennedy guy, being a direct mail guy, I'm like, how do I give real estate agents these tools that look a lot like what I built for myself and let them use it in their business? And, we started off as a subscription-based company, bang on the credit card every month for a subscription fee, and then sell them the power packs and sell them the direct mail and everything else. And I never really liked that, because one of my goals was to help the small agent who really couldn't afford all that stuff. And when I woke up and looked one day, like all we were doing was making the bigger agents more successful, and the little guys couldn't afford the monthly fees. And there were some other bigger ideas I had that just weren't ever going to work inside of the model of being a software company. And that's when we had the big idea to say, look, what if we turn listing power tools into a real estate brokerage? Which, I made that decision all the way back in 2018. And then we didn't actually launch as a brokerage until February of 22. So there was a 4-year gap in the middle of planning, waiting for the market to be right. I didn't want to launch a new brokerage into a frenzy. I wanted to wait for the Fed to start raising rates. I wanted there to be some disruption, some shift. And then it was nice too, because then as the refi volume came down at RP Funding, I didn't have to lay those employees off. I just moved them over to be the launch team for LPT Realty. So it served a couple of different purposes in taking care of my team, not having to do the mass layoffs like most mortgage companies did coming out of the 20 and 21 booms. And then having this team that was used to working together now focused purely on launching LPT Realty as the new iteration of listing power tools.
Nick, I know you got questions.
Oh, I do. I have so many questions. So I want people just to emphasize some things. He wanted to wait until disruption to launch, where often people that maybe don't have as many scars or battle wounds or battle experiences Robert does here would be like, whoa, I want to wait until it's good or rates come down. He's actually pivoting when rates go up. Talk to me more about that decision-making process. Or is it just your mindset, like, I'm going to embrace this chaos necessity?
Look, I think, launching RP Funding in, January of 2008 is when we got our mortgage lender's license, and that was like the beginning of the end. And so many people would be like, man, like that was probably the worst time to start a mortgage company. And the more people would say that, I'm like, actually, no, I'm proof that it was the best time to start a mortgage company. I mean, so I saw all of those dynamics one, I learned the hard lessons, right? Around 2018, we overgrew at RP funding. Rates were super low in 17. When the Trump bump hit, that's what they call when Trump got elected and rates went up, they called that the Trump bump inside the industry. And most lenders saw this massive drop in business, and I didn't. And I made the cardinal sin of drinking my own Kool-Aid. And I believe that I've got it figured out. I've spent so much money on TV and radio, and I'm such a household name now that I'll be able to do refis even when rates are high. And because when everyone else's refi volume was dropping, mine wasn't. But then as late 17, 18 hit, all of a sudden it did start to impact us, and it impacted us in a big way. And so I learned that lesson then, which was probably the greatest time to learn it, because if you didn't learn it then, the next window to learn it was the boom we just came off of, which was so much more massive, and you could do so much more foolish things with all that extra money and put yourself in such a worse position. And if you look at some really big lenders, they did exactly that. So I stayed defensive through the entire 20 and 21 market. Again, we instead of quadrupling the staff, we turned off all the advertising, but we still were able to keep volume way up. I didn't quadruple the staff. I didn't go crazy because I'm like, hey, this music is going to end. This is a cyclical business. One of the things I tell our agents all the time is I have learned from experience, when you're in the boom, you should all be thinking about nothing but how you are preparing for the next bust. And when you're in the bust, you should be 100% focused on how you are preparing for the next boom. And so I wanted to launch the company in a quote unquote bust. And I don't mean bust like 2008 home price bust, but when you look at number of transactions and P&Ls and people's money getting stretched because time from lead acquisition to closing and monetization has gotten longer and longer and longer, that is a bust from a business perspective. And by launching into a bust, everything we're doing now is preparing us for the boom, where the companies who lived high on the boom are still trying to get downward adjusted to the bust. And they just, it's a huge disadvantage when they're trying to compete with us coming in young and nimble and bootstrapped and hungry and growing into the next boom. And that's the exact market dynamic I learned to live in with the mortgage company. And I wanted to replicate it almost exactly with the real estate play and with launching LPT. And look, I tell people as much as I love the mortgage business, this is the company I feel like I was born to build. I get so much more excited every day. I'm getting to create other entrepreneurs and help other entrepreneurs be really successful. I didn't get to do that with the mortgage company. It was all about me. My name's on the door, my initials. I made myself really wealthy. No one else got wealthy along the way. They were just cogs in my machine. LPT is all about now helping the next 10,000, 100,000 next me's be successful by using my tools, my ideas, my thoughts. And I absolutely love what I'm doing now. But I couldn't have expected the dynamics to line up almost exactly as they did, where first there was a massive shift in business, just like what the mortgage industry saw back in 08, 09 from the crash. But then this massive regulatory shift where just like CFPB and Dodd-Frank made massive changes to the regulatory environment around mortgages, we're going to see something like that most likely. Now, I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't see buyer's agency going away. I don't see a lot of the doom scenarios that people are using as clickbait, but there are going to be adjustments. And I feel like I'm very well suited to help our agents pivot and thrive in those adjustments, and for LPT to be a platform to help agents survive and win and do better in whatever changes come in the future. Because again, these are all things I did in my last business.
So y'all just crossed 6,000 agents. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're creeping up on 7,000 really quick. So when we announced the 6,000, we also announced we were opening 12 more states to put us in 20 states by year end. So we have a ton of agents in those states ready to come on the day we officially open, which is going to that'll probably put us over the 7,000 mark, like the day we launch all those states, just because they're sitting waiting for the licensing and for me to tell them they can go. But yeah, man, the goal is 10,000 by March. I feel really good about that. That's our 2-year anniversary. So the idea is 24 months in business, 10,000 agents. Nobody's even come close to doing that before. And, no one's gotten to 6,000 in 19 months the way we did. No one had ever gotten to 1,000 in 7 months the way we did. But to me, the big win is when we break 10,000 at 24 months. That's, that really is that's the goal we set out to do. And I feel really good that we're on track to do it.
Well, there's a couple things to touch on. That's really impressive, the growth. And I'm wondering about going back to your previous experience where you're going to spend more to acquire the client than others. Now, growing a brokerage, who's the client? The client's the agent that you're partnering with. So what are you doing? Where are you deploying the capital to acquire the client?
Yeah,
Or
so
are you super bootstrapped under the radar going to states?
Yeah, so in our world now, that phrase is less about me being the one to spend the most to acquire the client. It's how do I help our agents be the one to efficiently spend the most to acquire the client? Because really, our role as the brokerage is not necessarily to acquire that client. We want to provide the tools. I want an agent to be able to acquire more clients by using listing power tools at less cost, so that they can have the most marketing firepower to beat and have an unfair advantage against all their competitors, but at a lower price point. That's a big part of the thesis here by giving them access to listing power tools for free, the digital marketing products, the direct mail products, the free power pack on every listing. That's all about them being the agent in their market to spend the most on advertising or show up with the most value of advertising to win the consumer. For us, like we do some cool stuff. Like we do digital billboards across all our markets that we feature our agents on. As a part of an upgraded package for listings, agents can get their billboards on or get their listings on billboards as one more way to help win that listing appointment. But it's not like the old days of like, hey, I'm going to, at the corporate level, outspend everybody on growth. This is about helping our agents be the ones to outspend or outperform everybody from a marketing standpoint without having to spend quite as much as they would have otherwise to win those customers and win at their level. Because again, I want them to be the entrepreneur I was at RP Funding. I'm now helping all of them become that by being something different, by being the pipes and the network underneath it to help them be more successful.
Yeah, the one thing you said to me when I talked to you about it, because obviously RP Funding was your name on billboards. You said I wouldn't be more in the background. I want to be, I want to put everybody else out front. Where it's totally different, because before RP Funding, you were commercials, radio show, magazines, book, and this is, you're putting everybody else out front. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have, okay, so if you're talking to a real estate agent, entrepreneur mindset, team builder, they want to build a team, they want to make an impact, they want to increase their sales. In today's boom and bust cycle, right? We went from a boom, we're kind of a bust in terms of sales volume. What are you doing right now in Indiana or Illinois or Midwest or wherever you're at? What are you doing as a real estate agent, entrepreneur?
Yeah, so you got to have numbers. You got to have that growth. You got to have more bodies. I'm a big believer in that. A lot of the agents that have come in, a lot of big teams that have come in, one of the first kind of things I try to dispel is a lot of them will say, well, I don't want more agents. I just want to make my existing agents more efficient. I want to take my existing agents and I want to double all their business. I said, well, that's great. But the problem is they don't want that. And you don't get to define what their definition of success is. You can define your definition of success, but the minute you start trying to define other people's version of success for them, you are going to lose. And again, I learned this in my business. Like, you need more bodies because they need to self-select. They need to decide if they want to be a 5-a-year player or a 20-year player or a 50-a-year player or whatever they're going to be. And so you need enough people that you can spread the work across everyone. And so recruiting is massive. And, one of the things we've created, with LPT growing so fast, our teams are growing very fast too, because you have all these agents joining LPT and a lot of them want to join a team. And it's easier to get an agent to join your team if they're already in your brokerage, especially in a world like ours where the caps don't change. So at LPT, any agent can have a $5,000 cap on our 100% plan, or any agent can have an 80-20 with a $15,000 cap, depending on if they want to earn rev share, be a team leader. Like, there's some nuances there. But what that creates is where at other brokerages, the brokerage may actually not want people to join your team because they don't want to see the cap go from 23,000 down to 8,000 or 16,000 down to 4,000, where in our model, the agent gets the same cap either way. So we are motivated as the brokerage, as the company, to help agents who want to get on a team find the right team. And so, we had one team over in Tampa joined us. He's got Flex. He's tripled his agent count in the 8-9 months he's been with LPT by riding the wave of our growth. And because of Flex, the leads keep coming and he's able to scale and grow with that. And, he's went from a 15-person team to a 45-person team. So very focused on helping team leaders. I think that's a big thing. If I'm a team leader, I'm very much focused on growing my variable costs, like growing my agent base where I have variable costs, I have commissions, and then really being thrifty and smart about my fixed overhead. Like I'm telling our guys, like do not take on any new fixed expenses into Q4. Like control your expenses, maybe move some of your calls from ISAs down to the agent level. Don't add another ISA body. Don't go sign another deal for anything. Don't go get new office space. Like hunker down through Q4. The next 4, 5, 6 months are going to be pretty tough in our industry, especially if rates don't come down even more. And really maximize the variable expense in your business, which is those commissions. And while it may cost you a little more today, it will put you in a better position for when the next boom does happen. Because right now we've got to survive this bust, and this bust is lasting longer than I think a lot of us would have predicted. And so I think that's it. Control the expenses, be smart about it, keep working hard. Like there's a difference between taking yourself out of the business and just not working at all in the business. You can take yourself out of the business while still being a contributing member. Like that doesn't mean you're showing houses, but to think you're going to just go lay on the beach 40 hours a week in the middle of a market like this, not going to happen. I'll tell you, during the pandemic boom, my wife was pregnant at the time and she was underwriting loans, at 2 a.m. She hadn't worked in the business in years, but when times get tough, you got to roll up your sleeves as an entrepreneur and as a leader and get in there and do the work and not think, oh, well, I worked really hard to get myself out of the business. I'm not going back in. Like I'm the first guy to go back in. My wife, pregnant, came back in with me. But yeah, focus on agent count, focus on those variable expenses, where you win and lose together, and be really conscious of, what you're going to commit yourself to from a fixed expense standpoint. And then try to keep your marketing as variable as possible. Don't sign long commitments. Don't put yourself in stuff where maybe you're stuck in a contract now and it's not working. Like I feel like you need to stay nimble in the type of market we're in with marketing and with those expenses.
Yeah, those are a lot of the conversations we're having too at Reside, right, Preston, in terms of fixed expenses, looking at reallocation. Even people before they join Reside is like, how do we reallocate the expenses you have? Because a lot of it's wasteful. I mean, we're finding so much wasteful fixed expense, whether that's advertising or marketing that you're not holding accountable to actual results, right? Dan Kennedy, right? Like you have to hold your advertising and marketing accountable. If it's not making money, you cut it. And then before you know it, because you're making money off your advertising, before you know it, you have a brand. You don't go brand first. So pick up on what Robert said earlier. And then just reallocate that capital. And oftentimes a platform like ours is just, we're removing fixed expenses in a time where they need it. And then they focus on the variable expense, which is, an agent that makes a sale. And they brought in revenue, so you only had to spend money when they made money. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, look, I think the biggest kind of, for a lot of entrepreneurs, the worst thing that could have happened in their career was a 6 million plus home sale year like we had during the pandemic, because all of a sudden expenses feel really cheap. And again, you drink your own Kool-Aid, and you're thinking like, yeah, I'm going to go do that vanity play. I'm going to go, I'm going to go wrap, 10 Hummers or whatever it is. Like, all of a sudden you make some of those vanity plays because it was just so good and it felt like we couldn't do anything wrong. And again, I lived that in past cycles. So I was the guy during this boom, like, nope, I'm not spending anything, put every dollar in the bank. Like when this one busts, it's going to bust so hard. It's going to destroy a lot of companies. And yeah, that's the biggest adjustment people are having to make. And honestly, I think Q2 this year was actually pretty good. And that was like a head fake. I think a lot of people were maybe just in enough pain to where they were ready to make some tough choices. And then Q2 was a little better than expected. Volume was up, maybe we're out of it. And then Q3 and 4 like coming screaming back in to create even more pain. But that head fake, I think, made it worse for a lot of people. You got to be willing to cut. You got to be willing to bail out of that stuff. And then my thing is like, if you just survived that transition from feeling like you couldn't do anything wrong and maybe you made some poor choices, financially, and now you're having to adjust to it, don't ever do it again. Like when we go into the next boom, you are now the smarter entrepreneur. Like you earned that. You have the scars. I have the scars. Be smarter in the next boom and you will win in a much bigger way in the next bust. Because I can tell you from my world, by not leaning in heavily to the last boom, I am crushing it during this bust because we didn't make those foolish decisions. We didn't sign new crazy contracts. We didn't up a lot of our sports sponsorships. We let those run off. I had a 5-year, $10 million deal with the Orlando Magic I did back in 2017, right before the bottom fell out. I did not renew that during the pandemic. And if I hadn't had the experience of 18, I probably would have done a 5-year, $100 million deal, with somebody. with a much bigger a much bigger thing during the pandemic. So learn from those lessons, because I can promise you, having that dry powder and having your wits about you and being focused on growth during a bust is what will put you in the absolute best position to win in the future. And so then if you're coming in as a newer team and you don't have some of that baggage, and you get to scale up with, partnerships like Reside and the tools available today, you are in such a position to win, because some of these legacy big teams and legacy big brokerages, they cannot figure out how to get right-sized for this market. And it is only a matter of time before it combusts, miraculously and spectacularly combusts on them, because they're not willing to make the tough choices.
It's one of these things where it also brings me back to some points you're saying. You're seeing teams within LPT grow faster by joining LPT, because you also mentioned something along the lines of agents want to join teams, right? Because they're holding a lot of the overhead expenses and have opportunities and support, you name it. Do you see that trend continuing as we move from this boom to bust, that teams are going to continue to be more of the dominant players?
Yeah, I think what my thesis really is that the teams are going to get stronger, more powerful. So the top is going to get more powerful, and then the bottom is going to get larger, and then the middle is going to get squeezed. So I think with everything happening, you're going to see more successful big teams. You're going to see consolidation among teams. We've seen some of that happening, because the team needs a certain level of scale to win. And then the middle is really going to get squeezed out. And then I think you're going to see a rise in agents doing 5 deals or less a year, because it's easier to stay in now. And what the nice thing is, those agents are great targets for teams, because if they do decide they want to do more, if their definition of success changes from part-time agent doing 3 or 4 a year to full-time agent, rolling into a team is a great way to experience that. But it's much easier to be in real estate part-time now because of technology, because of work from home, because of the gig economy. The idea that you can pick up side jobs and side hustles, and that you can work from home, where if you disappear from your computer for 3 or 4 hours a day to go do a listing presentation or whatever, is much different than if you roll back to 2008, 2009, when we saw the real massive attrition of agents, where, going out and getting a quote unquote real job meant sitting in an office for 40 hours a week. Now there's all these dynamics that I think will allow more people to stay in kind of part-time, or in that less than 5 deals a year. There was a study done recently that in most major markets, agents doing less than 5 deals a year control 1/3 of all commissions. I mean, that's staggering if you think about it. And so I think when you think about commission control, I think the big teams are going to control a chunk. The agents doing less than 5 deals a year are going to control a chunk. And the middle is going to struggle to find its place. And, we built our model to serve both of those extremes, and then have a way to bring them together to help each side win more effectively by driving growth at the teams and by driving that opportunity to move up at the individual agent level. And then if you go back in history, we're not the first to do this. If you go back and look at any of the massive growth among cloud brokerages or franchise brokerages, the biggest teams were made at times when the brokerage itself was growing. So if you go back and look at when the current largest cloud brokerage went from 35,000 to 70,000 agents in a very quick window of time, that's when some of their absolute biggest teams caught the sail, caught the wind, and were able to grow. You go back to, the 160,000 franchise-based agent brokerage, when they were growing like crazy, big teams were growing along with them. It's much harder to build a team from, 2 or 3 agents to 20 or 30 agents if the brokerage you're at is not also growing at the same time, because now you're literally swimming upstream. You need that momentum around you. And I'm not saying you can't do it, right? As an entrepreneur, you can force anything in any market, but it's much easier when you catch that wind and you catch that growth. And again, you can go back and look at history and see a lot of people who have rode those waves to massive growth. It's harder to do when the brokerage is stagnant or only growing by 4 or 5% a year or whatever, to think you're going to grow your team by 300% in agent count.
And the brokerage also has to be aligned with wanting teams to grow.
Yeah.
We made that point where, and the team leader has to have a mindset of growth.
Yeah.
Right? Those things have to be in place.
And again, for me, we don't force it on anybody. We want to be a vehicle for growth, but if you're happy as a 4 or 5 person team, again, I want your definition of success. I coach our teams on that when it comes to their agents, but I believe it personally too. I want each of our agents, team leaders, whatever they are, you're going to determine your personal definition of success, and LPT is going to be a platform to help you achieve whatever that is. It's not my place to come in and say, oh, you only did 3 deals last year, you should do more. Oh, you only have 7 people on your team, you need to have $40 if you want to unlock some special, lower cap or whatever. We make the core platform available in the same way to everybody so that they can win no matter what their individual definition of success is.
And the one thing you did say, with LPT, it's real estate first.
Yes.
So you don't want a bunch of people that aren't really in the business just growing massive teams. You want to focus on the actual team leaders and the leaders growing real estate businesses.
Yeah, I'd say when I tell people outside of the business, like, our first core value is real estate first, and they look at me like I have three eyeballs. They're like, Robert, you launched a real estate brokerage. Why would you make your first core value that you're real estate first? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. You're like, McDonald's is hamburger first or fast food first. Like, you're real estate first. I'm like, well, look, you got to understand, in our industry, you have one really big company telling people it's not a real estate brokerage, it's a tech company, and then you've got another really big one that drives most of their accolades more around recruiting and downline than around actual real estate sales. They both sell a lot of real estate. That's not what I'm saying. It's about culturally, what are you most focused on, and what are you going to reward and encourage and support with your corporate tools and our scale as a brokerage. We are most focused on helping our agents transact more real estate through tools and marketing and education and everything we provide. But it all starts with, is this thing we're about to do going to help someone sell more real estate? Like at our annual convention, before we put an agent on stage or on a panel, are they going to give a message that's going to help agents sell more real estate? We don't have panels focused on recruiting. We don't have award systems focused on recruiting. For us, all that's focused on selling real estate, and building a big real estate team is a great way to sell a lot of real estate. Being a really successful solo agent is a great way to sell a lot of real estate, but we're very focused culturally. The agents in our brokerage who have my personal cell phone number, it's because they sell a lot of real estate. It's not because they have a big downline or have attracted a bunch of agents. I vibe the best with the people who love selling real estate, which is, again, back to that real estate first culture and real estate first core value.
Yeah, but by the way, that the differentiation position there is brilliant, by the way. In the timings, I would say opportunistic for sure in this marketplace. I see why you're bullish and excited about it for sure. And I think that same value works for teams. When you're making a pitch to an agent, it's like, we're going to help you sell, transact more units. Because at the end of the day, I would say that most agents just want to help people and be out there selling real estate. They want to be showing homes. They want to be looking at going to people's homes and walking through them at the end of the day. And then it's not a huge split conversation at that point. It's just an impact and overall sustainability play. I think you're right on the lower end agent, like the 5 or less, because the commission per sale has gone up, to which you don't have to sell as many homes. So back in the day, it was like you had to sell 24 homes to make a decent living. Now it's like 7 in some marketplaces, 5 in some marketplaces, and you're part-time.
Yeah. Oh, and look at, if you own a couple Airbnbs or you've got some pickup gig economy stuff, all of a sudden 3 or 4 is enough to get your overall income to the level it needs to be at. Like, those are real dynamics in today's market that did not exist in the last major real estate crash or real estate, bust.
Well, this has been an amazing interview. Preston, any final words, final questions for Robert?
No, I don't have anything. I think you touched on it all.
No, man, it was a brilliant, really, really good points. I really encourage people to listen to it again. And Robert, thank you so much for joining us on the Reside Platform podcast. We wish you the best of luck in your new venture.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
We can support you. We're there.
Awesome. Really enjoyed it and love seeing what you guys are building with Reside. And again, I think it's very timely. Like what we're doing at LPT, a lot of entrepreneurs need that assistance. I think the way you guys are approaching it is great. The way the structures are built, the way that they can be, successful with you guys. And I'm a fan. I've told Preston that from kind of our first conversations. But yeah, thanks for having me on today. Always happy to share the story and some insight where I can, and look forward to talking to you guys more in the future.